Welcome back, folks, to another episode of Business from the Bass Boat on the Serious Angler Network, powered by X2 Power. And guys, today we've got a great interview lined up. It is cold in Colorado. I'm actually glad I'm inside. I had an awesome deer hunt this last week, and had a great time. Ended up killing a pretty awesome buck. So if anyone wants to check that out, my social media is just Adam Deacon on Instagram. If you guys are in the woods this time of year, as a lot of fishermen are. But we've got a guy who is kind of in his in-between stage right now of where he gets into his really busy season. He tends to do some crappie fishing this time of the year, so I want to get into that with him. But without further ado, the host of Bass Talk Live, Matt Pangrac.
What's up?
How's it going, man?
Dude, you're not going to show the picture, but like, look at, there it is right there. I've got it pulled up. That's a big deer, man.
Dude, it was awesome. It was archery, 5 yards, man. Snuck into 5 yards.
Okay, yeah, that was my question. So I read that. So 5 yards is like caveman spear killing him, right?
Dude, it was, I have never, yeah. I mean, I did not expect him to be where he was. I had seen him and a doe, had kind of bedded them. We had an idea of where they were, but we weren't 100% sure. And I just, we saw the doe finally and snuck in, and he ended up being right in front of my face. And I luckily,
was it one of those things where you're like looking for him and then you're just like, oh crap, he's literally like right in front of me. And so was that like him being dumb or you being like really, really stealthy, like perfect stalk? Or a combination of both
situation, man. I'm not going to put it on my stalking skills. Like, I mean, I spent a lot of time trying to stalk in on animals and a lot of times failing. But so basically what happened, I'll go through it here for a minute, but basically, he was, especially it seems like mule deer, they love like old farmsteads and old buildings that aren't being utilized anymore. I think it's just because there's always generally a lot of grass around it and CRP that grows up. And so they feel protected and they're hidden around those kind of buildings. And we basically had lost where this buck and this doe had went. And so like the rut's going on, right? So he is chasing this doe around. We lost him, kind of have this area we expected where he had maybe have gone, and worked our way in really slowly with the wind in our face, right? So that the wind is the sense your biggest thing in that situation. And got close to where we spent 2 hours now trying to find them in this field, going really slow and glassing with binoculars, trying to find them, can't find them. Finally, we end up seeing the doe asleep with her head up behind a building, like literally pulled up the binoculars and was like, oh my gosh, she's asleep with her head up. And then she put her head back down and we got behind in line with the building so they don't see us. I take my boots off and start, creeping in very, very slow, wind's in a good direction. And it's an old foundation. Imagine like an old building that only has 3 sides and no top to it. And I basically got up to it. The doe was on the other side. I knew she was there. My plan was to everything's perfect. I've snuck all the way in. I'm to the building. I'm like, this doe is like 7 yards, 8 yards in front of me. I don't know where, I still haven't seen the buck. We don't know where the buck is at all. He could not even be with her. I just had assumed when he was chasing her that he was somewhere nearby.
He's somewhere nearby.
Yeah. So I am working my way around the building and there's a crack in it. And my shadow is like casting over that crack. So I'm like, if this deer sees the shadow, they're going to get really nervous. And there's one part in the building to where it's low enough that I could come over the top, because my plan was to go around the side and hope that he was there.
But are you bow hunting? Or what are you doing?
Bow hunting, yeah.
Oh my gosh,
dude. So I'm working my way around and I see the body of a deer through the crack and I see my shadow and I'm like, crap, I'm going to really pay attention. And this deer is like right in front of me. I'm going to really pay attention to if the body moves at all. And if they do, I've been burned way too many times waiting. I'm just going to draw and come over the building and hope that the buck's
like
right
Rambo
there.
style.
Dude, yes. So I mean, literally I see, and sure enough, like my shadow's going across the crack and I see a deer's head, the head and neck kind of like raise. And I'm like, crap, like they know I'm here now. And the wind was good. Everything was good. I was being really quiet, shoes off. It was a dirt trail at this point, so it was really sneaky. But I'm like, they know I'm here or something, you know, making them nervous. So I draw my bow and I come up over the low spot in the building, and the doe jumps up and she's like freaks out, right? But she's standing there like, what are you? What just happened? And I'm looking and I'm like, I don't know where the buck is at all. And he was on the other side of the wall from me, like right under my feet.
Oh my
So
gosh.
he jumps up, looks at the doe, and I just drilled him, and he ran 30 yards and toppled over. And it was, my buddy was 100 yards behind watching. We were just fist bumping and like just
I feel
so
like that's a
fired.
once in a lifetime deal.
Dude, we had no idea that buck was that big either. It was once in, like, I don't know, I don't think I'll ever top it. Like I'm, you know, like
I've never hunted, dude. I've never hunted. Like the closest I
yeah,
get to hunting is wearing like a camo hoodie. I
yeah.
just never got into it. Like I've sat in a deer stand and stuff before, but not. That sounds like it was just like massive adrenaline rush.
Dude, it was absurd. I mean, like I was shaking. I mean, yeah, like he was so close like that, and to have something like that actually work
Did it just
out.
go straight through him at that
Oh yeah.
distance? I mean, I
Oh
would
yeah.
imagine that the velocity of that thing hitting him had to be just blow right through him.
Oh yeah. And he was dead. I mean, it was a perfect shot. He ran
Awesome.
30 yards and toppled over, and it was man, it was wild. I've never, I mean, being that
That's
close,
awesome.
like dude, that I don't think that'll ever happen again.
No, that's a good story, man.
Oh, well, thanks for letting me share that. Well, dude, you are, like you said, this is your, I mean, and big time listener of the show, Matt, and everything with BTL, and just know that this is your kind of time, especially when you were covering the elites and covering everything else. Like this was your time to fish because you were busy the rest of the time. You know, why or what do you feel? Do you feel like the vast majority of anglers are missing some of the action in the fall in today's world, or do you think there's ups and downs to that? What's your thoughts?
Yeah, I think so. I think there's a certain. I think it comes down to personality. I think there's a certain group of guys who want to mentally feel like they're ahead of everyone else when the next season starts because they never stop fishing. I think there's a certain group of people that like have to fish for their mental stability, so they never stop. And then I think there's a group of people that like need to stop fishing and focus on hunting in order to be rejuvenated for the following season. So I mean, I think to each their own. I think it's where it's dangerous is where you have the group that like thank God the season's over and they don't want to fish and they don't have
Mm.
any, they just and that's when you're like kind of starting to. I mean, you see guys that are like, man, I'm so ready for the season to be over. Then they hunt and they just don't want to look at anything. Like that's where I think you run into the issue. But I think I mean, I think like when Hackney's in the woods and Christie and Swindle and all that, like they're becoming better anglers in the woods too,
Sure.
just because of their like senses and the way that they approach everything so, methodically.
Dude, it's crazy. Like, and I mean, I've grown up hunting mostly waterfowl, and then I kind of got into some big game
Mhm.
stuff, rifle hunting, and then now I've gotten a lot more serious archery stuff. But like the comparisons, like you're saying, just like the sensory and like seeing how things are reacting and that kind of stuff. But the biggest thing that I've noticed, especially like if I'm in the mountains, like elk hunting, it's very similar to like breaking down a lake. Like I almost think of like a smallmouth lake. Like if you're catching them in 20-foot on rock piles or like on in a specific depth contour that is just like, man, every time I get to a flat in 15 feet of water, like they're on it, or in the back of
Mhm.
creeks, like whatever it may be, that same situation happens in hunting. Like you find elk at a certain elevation band or like on flats on top of ridges, and it's like you just keep going, and every time it's like a pattern that just kind of will start to uh fulfill itself. So it's kind of it's an interesting
Similar.
thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
That I didn't realize until maybe the last like 5 years of how some of that
Like, do
plays.
you know anybody who's a really good hunter who just really, or let's do it this way. Do you know anybody who's a really good fisherman who just sucks at hunting? Like, it seems, like I said, I'm not a hunter, I don't
Yeah.
hunt, but it seems like anybody who's really good at fishing is also seems to be like a natural at hunting. It's
I
weird how
agree.
that works, but not the vice versa.
So you're
There's a
saying,
lot of hunters who enjoy fishing,
yep, but don't care
and
about
I've
it.
been in the boat with a lot of hunters who are like, "Yeah, I mean, I could tell you enjoy fishing, but you're not good at it." but it just seems like there's a lot of, and I'm sure it works that way too. It's just because I'm more on the fishing side, but it just seems like the guys who like are really good at fishing, like at the top level, are also like really good hunters.
Yeah, I think, well, and I think too, like just so much of it, like you're saying, like personality wise, like you've got guys that just love that pursuit of animals and the competition side of tournament fishing, but then you have like, you know, I mean, Paul and Nick, right? I mean, he's big time hunter in Idaho and all that. And like they love that pursuit as well. So I agree. I know that's interesting to think about because you're right. I don't know if I've ever
I
met
probably just offended a bunch of hunters, but
anyone.
sorry.
Yeah, exactly. Guys are like, oh, cool, man. So you think fishing's better? Like, no, but I mean, I agree, man. I see your point. I mean, but to your side of things, especially, it seems any local grassroots tournament series, right? Your championships are in the fall.
Yep.
Opens continually flow over into the fall season. So I
Yep.
think that there's a lot of benefits to spending time on the water in the fall. And it's a good time too to work on stuff. I mean, especially if you're not someone who's super familiar with forward facing sonar, it's a great time. And it's a great time to go crappie fishing and do that kind of stuff. I think there's some absolute benefits there, as long as it's not going to burn you out, I guess, is like,
Yeah, 100. I was literally, so I did day 4 with Frank Scalish today on BTL, and afterwards, I was talking about the opens for 2023, and I was like, man, I was like, I wish I sucked in the fall because it keeps like sucking me back in the following year. Because like I'm not I I mean I'm not fantastic in the spawn or even in the summer or anything like that. Like I feel like there's a little time during the post spawn that's very similar to the fall, a little bit more
yeah,
lethargic, but it kind of matches up that May June time.
sure.
But the fall, like if you look at my stats at all the AAA level stuff, like
You top 10, like
I
you're right in that,
rarely
like,
miss in the fall. Like I mean, from 2018 until last year, like every fall, I have a couple chances to win a major event or do really well in events like that, kind of carry me through the next year. And it's all like I've looked back on all of them and compared them. It's all like similar stuff, like patterns, parts of the lake, movements. And I think that's just because I understand it, because that's when I've spent a lot of time on the water over the past 15 years.
sure, sure. No, man, I think that's huge, and I think that it's so strange to me that it sets up that way. It's almost like when I say, I guess what I'm getting at is like at that top tier level, at the Elite Series, at the BPT, like there's never or very rarely stuff in the fall, right? Unless it's like a COVID year kind of
Yeah, like the COVID year was awesome, and look at how many different winners we had, and look at how many slugfest fisheries were like tough fisheries, and how many guys who you're like, boy, this guy's having like a really good resurgence on his career. This guy like came out of nowhere. Like a lot of those tournaments were like it later in the year when they weren't used to being on there, like with Rick Clunn with like the crankbait and spinnerbait. That late topwater came into play like the year not this year, but the year before I finished sixth in the overall. There was like rescheduled tournaments to the fall, right? So in 2021, like Grand was late in the fall.
Yep.
I don't know. I had 3 top 30s out of the last 4 opens, and 2 of those were rescheduled for the fall, and the one that wasn't was on Smith, and that was just mental execution error on my part. I had a good tournament, a good day on the first day too, but those were all just like kind of fall scattered, fish by the seat of your pants, figure out the pattern as you go type deals.
Yeah. No, and it's almost like like I don't know if it's like the good old boys club where they're all these guys, you know, are big time hunters, right? And so they are like, man, we don't want to be. I mean, how many guys get pissed when like the schedule rolls over into September, October, November, right? It's like these guys want to maintain that season that ends before they
Yeah,
get to
I would like to see a wraparound season. Like I know NASCAR's done it, golf's done it. Like I think there's a I think that you could do a wraparound season and still let the guys hunt. Like maybe just throw like one a month in there, like a November, December, then pick it back up, with the classic or something. But I think a wraparound season to get some of those. I think it would. I mean, I think there's a lot of guys who made their careers on that fall bite who you're like, man, they suck now. And it's like, no, just over the past like 15 years, they stopped going to their wheelhouse fisheries at the right time. Like Rick's a perfect example of that. He's made like 6 classics since 2000. Well, what happened in 2006? The Elite Series came, and that schedule stopped going from invitationals and top 150s. It had a lot of events in the fall that he could throw a spinner bait and cover water and throw a crankbait and his RC and catch that 11 to 13 pounds a day and do well. And they started going to pre-spawn, spawn heavy, maybe one summer event, and then they go up north and they're done in July or August. Well, I mean, go back and look at Rick's stats in September and October, like August, September, October. I mean, that's when he shined.
It's true. No, like that's a good point, and I think that yeah, it's a very strange phenomenon that it's that way. And then you look at, like, I mean, the tour especially, and now the invitationals, like that specific tour always seemed very short to me, like 6 months. You know what I mean? Like it was a very like condensed. I mean, February to July. You know, like very very tight 6 tournaments.
It'll see if it changes, but here's the formula for success. If you are dead set and 100% set on being a professional angler, you need to have a trailer down in Florida. You need to spend 2 months there. Look at the guys who are good down there. Randall Tharp's done it. Chad Morgenthaler did it. The guys who are down there, the more time you spend in Florida, and once you figure that, you're basically guaranteed that at most and almost all options, a quarter of your season, if you have 8 events, 2 of them, they typically like to go back to back in Florida. That's a quarter of your events, right? Yep. Then you need to have a trailer up at Thousand Islands or somewhere up in New York, and you spend 2 months up there. Justin Lucas has done it. Tristan McCormick did it. Who's the dude who just Dakota Ebear did it. A bunch of these guys did it. And you're like, well, how the hell did you get good up there? And they're like, dude, we just like lived up there and spent day after day after day. So if money's no object and you could spend 2 months in Florida and 2 months up north and spend all your extra time on that, you're guaranteed half of the season when you reach the professional level is going to be in your wheelhouse. Then you throw in a spawn event, which you're typically good at. And now you basically have 2 events that you have to get through. And the other 4 or 5 around, the other 4 or 5 around it, though, you're expecting top 10s and a chance to win. Like, dude, it's an easy freaking formula. It's hard to do, but there are guys who have done it, and you're seeing those guys. Like, it's the guys who you're like, oh, how the hell did they catch him up north? Oh, I didn't know that he like lived up there for a month. Or why does a guy from Illinois catch him in Florida? Well, he once down there and lives for 2 months out of the year.
Mm-hmm. No, dude, that's something huge that I've always considered. And actually, I need to do another one for 2023 here, but I've done it the last 2 years now. I basically have a scoring system in Excel, and I go through all the tournament series, professional to the AAA level, and I basically said, okay, it's 2 points if it's an Elite Series or a BPT event, and it's 1 point if it's an Opens, a Toyota Series, and then I don't remember how I scored the NPFL, but basically I said, okay, all of these, here's the locations of the lakes broken down over the last 3 years, the last 5 years, the last 7 years. And you can see the consistency. And in both of the last 2 years, the #1 visited lake have been Northern Lakes as far as out of all the tours, not just like Elite Series, like, and they've been Northern Lakes. So it's this exactly what you're saying. Like, pay your dues on the Northern Fisheries, pay your dues in Florida, and half your season is accounted for once you make it to that top tier level. No, dude, I like it. I like, if money's no object, and like you said, it's hard to do to take that much time dedicated. But if like this is your thing and this is what you're gonna do, like, not a bad way to look at it.
Yeah, if you have a 5-year plan, or if you're mobile, like, you can work on the road or something, and you can fish BFLs and Toyotas, or if an Open comes in that backyard or anything, another time, just time on the water, and do that for 1 or 2 years, and then start cycling. That's the way to do it, in my opinion.
Yeah, I like it. I like it. Well, let's get into your 2022, man, and then we'll kind of get into 2023. But in your 2022, how would you, and I'm going to pull up your stats here real quick, but how would you kind of rate your season overall, your experience? I mean, this is what you're in your 2nd year of fishing all 9 Opens.
Yeah, this was my full second year. I fished the Opens the year before that, but just one division, and then two divisions of the Toyotas before that.
Okay.
So 1, 2, 3. Yeah, so I'd say 4. This is my 4th year of like seriously going after it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, on like a school grade level in your head, it doesn't have to be because of where you finished, what it was. I mean, like where would you put yourself, like just mentally in your headspace? Where do you feel like you were at in your season in 2022?
As far as putting myself in position to succeed, I mean, wasn't even like close. I finished like 16th in one division, 18th in the overall. I mean, like these, if we, you have to grade it on multiple things, but like as far as putting myself in position to succeed, I give myself an A+.
Heck yeah, dude.
Like I never in one event I feel like I missed the bite, and in the 8 out of the other 9, I feel like I was on fish for top 20s, and I had one top 20 out of those 9. Like I know that I was
It's the
like because
difference. Yeah.
they bit my stuff in 8 out of the 9. They like in 7 out of the 9 they bit my stuff like for crazy good finishes, which happens to everybody. But okay, I'll give myself a B because an A would have been I would have
I
been
know.
on fish good enough to recoup missed opportunities.
Oh, so above and beyond like
Yeah,
that level.
so like instead of being on fish to get like 1 4-pound bite a day, I should have been on fish to get 2 or 3 4-pound bites a day. So I could be 66% or even 33% and still have a kicker, or up at Oneida instead of being like, if I had landed, I should have been on multiple 4.5-pound smallmouths. So when you're like, it's a smallmouth, that's what they do. It's not like crap, there goes my day.
Sure.
So I would say B.
B.
B
Okay.
in that. F in
That's
every other aspect.
yeah. Yeah.
That's the only thing that I was happy about, which I think is the toughest thing to do though, at
I
that
agree.
level in the
I
opens,
agree.
to stay around fish. Like I never felt lost ever,
That's cool.
except on
That's huge.
Cherokee. Except on Cherokee. I only had 4 on the second day of Cherokee, and everyone caught 15 pounds and called 30 times. Like guys were like, dude, I literally destroyed 4 spinner baits today on smallmouth, and I had 4 bites on the first day, and I had 6 bites, or 4 bites on the second day, 6 bites on the first day.
Oh, dude, that's like the
And I landed every single one of those.
dang.
Yeah.
Dang. That's like when I mean, that's good, dude. And I think that that's like maturity in getting, that experience level of just so much high level tournaments on the water, because it's a way better feeling to be like to the point of the guys who talk about how the 5 fish format hides bad finishes and doesn't show the top level finish, because and I don't necessarily
It's
fully agree with that.
BS. I
Yeah.
totally disagree with it. That's
Yeah.
total. I will argue to my grave that that's not it.
That's not the way.
No.
Well, what I'm saying is, deep down how how close you were or how not close you were in that day. And I think that if you can realize, hey, look, I was in the area where it went down, or I found the same area where it went down, that I was around fish and I just didn't execute. Or guess what? Everyone loses fish, but I lost more than I should. I should have found more fish to not lose as many as I did.
I'm not using it as an excuse. I'm like actually like breaking down like what had happened. Like I could have
Yeah.
just been like, hey, no, it was like run of the mill, but it was. I mean, you see what I mean? I'm not like up here going, oh, I should have
No,
done
no, no,
better. I
no,
just
no.
lost a lot of fish.
I think it's huge, man. No, I think
Mhm.
no. I'm saying I think that there's more of that story that needs
Because
to be
everyone
told.
loses them.
Hmm.
Everyone.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And I think that the majority of guys don't necessarily. I don't know. There's just some different ways guys go about that, right? Like as far as if they really lost as many as they did, or you just run into the same guys who are
Yeah.
like, oh, lost them again. Like it's like, dude, everyone's gonna lose fish. It is what it is.
Mhm.
Like move on from this. But I really wanted to get you on, Matt, to talk about your 2023, and also just about, you're in a position now, you're running BTL solo, running it all, also fishing the opens. I wanted to just get a breakdown on kind of some of the financial side too. I mean, we had talked off the air just about 2022, like I mean, how you break down some of those expenses into this season, and then how you manage it all on the road doing this, having a full-time podcast career, and then also doing this fishing thing and making it all work. And then also, like, by the way, trying to cash a check because it's expensive to do this.
Yeah.
I don't
Go ahead.
know if you want to first just kind of maybe break into your expenses on the season, or how you would kind of explain to people the costs when you really look at going into a full 9 season, because really, to me, that's the way to go if you're going to fish the opens right now in 2023. I mean, it's your way to, if you're trying to make the Elite Series, it's your only way now.
So I'll just say this. So I think everyone starts the year with, hey, this is the year that I'm going to have everything together. I'm going to practice like that. That's why you see so many of your buddies who are like, hey, I'm going to fish 2 divisions of the BFLs and the ABAs and jump into this. And you're like, no, you're not. It's freaking January. Just wait until April. You'll have already dropped 2 divisions and you'll fish 1 division. You'll be ready for the year. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like, this is the hardest part about it is when you do your cost analysis, then sticking to it and writing in variables, because there are always going to be variables. And then there's always going to be that one tournament where you're like, I've got to go buy this stuff. Or that dude who you run into on the water is like, hey, let's go grab a beer and a steak. And you're like, I mean, what are you going to be like? Sorry, I only have $18 written into the budget for the meal tonight. Like, you can come over to my VRBO that I'm sharing with 4 people and we can eat top ramen. No.
Yeah.
So like you start doing that and then it's like skewed.
Yep.
And then, at some point, then you can also rationalize it where if I'm going to be out here, I might as well go all out on it. So yeah, I'm getting 10 packs in case that, because I ain't running out of that. Or yeah, I'm going to, make that extra run. So like I have a very good system to it. So my issue is following it then. And I think that's everyone's issue, right? Like I have like this pretty packet of what everything costs.
You have a budget. Like you have a legit, like, hey, here's what my like estimated budget.
Yeah.
Season.
So like what I do, I go through at the beginning of every year, and I've done this for regardless of what I fish for the last years. And I do, depending on what like the national average is for fuel at the time. And then I know that I get like 12.5 to 13 miles a gallon towing. So I put that in. I estimate that I use 30 gallons of gas, which is variable per day in practice day. So I do all of those fuel expenses to and from, or if I'm going from somewhere to somewhere else, I'll have all that mileage. So then I'll know right off the bat, just to actually get there, this is how much it'll cost, just in fuel. So then I also do, so I've got it pulled up here. So this is the things that I take into account per tournament. So I have like my deposit, and then so $1,800 just to be entered in it. So then I have travel fuel, boat fuel, fishing license, lodging. If I have travel lodging, because a lot of people are like, oh yeah, I'm going, but then they're $120 in if they stop 15 hours into a 24-hour. I do $30 a day. So I give myself $75 a night for lodging, because it's a lot more expensive. I get the whole like, oh yeah, I stayed in the flea road. It's cool until all your crap's gone when you walk out and it's not well lit. So I'd rather spend the extra $30 a night and be at like a place with lighting in a nice neighborhood, like in a nice area. It's worth it to me.
Yeah.
And then I always make sure I build in like how many days I'm going to be gone for that. So it averages out. So like it averages out to about 500 a week, usually at $75 a night. I do $30 a day for food. I do $20 a day for ice and drinks in the boat, and try to go to Sam's beforehand and get all the stuff. So it does it. And then I give myself $100 in miscellaneous tackle expenses, which I'll probably bump up to like $250 this time. Going through for the year. So like then I kind of get, it just kind of gives you an overview of what each event is. And then I also had a page that I went through for miscellaneous expenses, which no one wants to think about. So that's like your engine oil change. If you fish all 9 opens, you're going to put more than 100 hours on your motor, so you got to do that. I put 500 for miscellaneous travel, boat expenses. That went a lot more. Truck oil changes. I bought like a hydraulic jack, boat tools. I had to buy a Mercury hub kit for my spare prop, utility ropes, boat insurance, all that. So right there, all of a sudden, like just in that, you're like, well, that's stuff you might have or not need. So there's another $2,000 there.
Mm-hmm.
And then each one is different based on how far. Tolls up north. Anyway, long story short, you're looking like just shy of $40,000 to fish 9 opens, and it's sneaky because if you look at it, you're like, well, that's just $16,200 in entry fees. It's $1,800 a tournament, and if you cash a check, it's like 3,600. So like, if I cash 2 or 3 checks, you're like approaching paying for your. It's not, dude. Everything racks up so ridiculous, and then you have like ramp fees, and then you get the sausage biscuit in the morning, and it's just like dunk dunk dunk, and then you reach like the point of apathy midway through the year when you don't have any you haven't cashed any checks, and then you like stop caring, or the receipt doesn't come out of the pump, and it's like 11 o'clock at night, and you don't go in and get it, and now it's just chaos. And I
Mm-hmm.
like every year I've started, and every year there's been a section of the year that I've like divulged into that chaos, and I never do well during that section.
And you're saying like just with tracking everything.
Yeah, with tracking everything, because that affects you whether you know it or not mentally. It affects me whether I know it or not, like mentally on the water.
Yeah. Just because, yeah, I mean, I'm kind of the same way. I mean, so I track all my stuff. And like I at first it was like, okay, I'm going to like make it a point to every month at the end of the month, like take everything. I don't do as much on the budgeting front end that as you do. It's mine's kind of more just all on the back end and just have kind of general estimates up front. But like it always ends up racking up and I redo all those numbers right before tax season. Like it always ends up to where I'm like, crap, I didn't track everything here. And then I have to go and back like 4 months previously. And then, like you said, just as far as like the receipts thing, man, like fuel is just such a pain for that that situation because I don't know, so many gas stations across the country, there's no receipt. Like I don't know why that is, but like every time I'm like, gosh, dang it, like gotta go inside to go get a receipt for fuel.
And in theory, like it's nice, like you just have one thing and you use that one account, and that's your open entry fees and stuff. But like, what happens when you run out of your fishing budget and you're 3 days into or 8 days into a 17-day trip? Do you just go, well, I'm out of my fishing budget. See you guys. No, then you dip into the personal. You see what
Yep.
I'm saying there?
Yep.
And now it's the vicious cycle because then you have to figure out what went where, that. Then you start worried about it. Then you don't catch them. Then you start pushing that you're not catching them. And then you don't have any chance because you're already fishing like a very tough. You're trying to be the top 3 out of 88 or 3 out of 250. And like talk to anybody who's ever done any good in this sport. It's all about reducing the controllable variables. So that's a controllable variable, right? And I'd say 80% of the field stresses over it.
Yeah.
I'd say there's 10% that's just independently wealthy based on good decisions that they've made in their life and hard work or whatever. And there's 10% of the field that's 100% on top of it and actually follow that budget and everything. Like the 80% are just like lost in the wilderness, just trying to get through to the next one.
Yeah. And man, it's interesting. A mindset around that too is like you hear guys like G-Man or when in the beginning of his career, Hackney, for instance, like talking about how like, when my back was against the wall is when I really like, stepped up. And for me, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, like, and again, my experience is literally just jumping into the Toyotas, fishing those as a boater, and being with Colorado, like it's an expense just to get to any of these tournaments. But like just having that, and then also going from full-time to independent contractor with work, and then like trying to maintain those responsibilities and then fish tournaments too, like that stress and the stress of not having the funds where I wanted them in some of the situations was like very hard for me to deal with. And I think that a lot of people have to deal with that. Don't get me wrong, but like my headspace has now gone to like, I would kind of rather be in a position financially where I'm very stable to then like, almost like you're saying, that better life decisions on the front end. But I'd love to hear, like, I feel like when I was backed into that corner of like, hey, I don't have the money here, I was like, I want to make money, not like I got to make money fishing kind of a thing. It was kind of a weird deal.
I don't know if I'm good to talk about that because this is the only, I guess I would say, like full-time job that I've had is work in the fishing industry. At first with Basso and then freelancing and doing it all. So it's all just like part of it for me. Like I've never really had like You know what I mean? Like I've not had a decision where I like quit
Yeah.
financial security to
Sure.
fish or jump into the industry because I've done it since I was, 20, like
You've
literally
always
intern from my
understood that's
junior
what it
year of
was.
college. So it's always just been kind of a weird evolution. I don't know if I'd have the cojones to do what those guys did, where they literally walk in and quit and say I'm
Right?
doing it full time. And then the other thing you also realize is there's there's stuff that's happened at critical moments of a lot of guys who are household names right now
Okay.
that if that fish doesn't come in the boat or if they don't make that decision or they don't win that tournament, you have no I mean they're there you have no clue who they're done.
That one, yeah, that
Yeah.
one
I
break
mean,
that
it's cool the more guys you
$200,000
talk
break.
to, like, I mean, if you talk like, what was your break? And they're like, dude, like literally like that was it. And then I pulled up and caught two 4 pounders and I won the tournament by an ounce and it was $50,000 and I was able to pay my entry fees for
For the
next year or
next, yeah,
something like that. Like, so I was watching, it was crazy. I'm kind of a nerd on the fishing stuff. So I was watching
good job, man.
the FLW Ever Start Series Championship from I think Old Hickory or something in 2003.
Dang, big
So
20 time frame.
19 years ago, 20 years ago, right? And Steve Kennedy had made the top 10. And I was watching
Okay.
when they had like the Snickers jerseys and all that. And they literally interviewed his wife in the crowd. And this was like, I mean, Steve Kennedy was still just kind of up. He wasn't Steve Kennedy yet.
Okay.
I mean, he was, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, yeah, he wasn't
And
as established.
there Charlie Evans is like, "Hey, let's go out to the crowd. We're ready for Steve Kennedy's wife." Blah blah blah. And the guy like, he's like, "Oh, it was Steve Kennedy's wife, and Steve had just, he quit his job last year. Blah blah blah. What would this win mean?" And she was like, "Yeah, a year ago, we put everything in storage and we sold the house, and we've been camping since then while he tries to chase this fishing dream like full time." And I'm like, "What?" And so I'm like, at that point, she didn't even need to say like how important it, but I'm just saying like that type of sacrifice. But I also think that there's very few people who are willing to make that type of sacrifice. So the
Mhm,
ones that are willing are the ones that make it because they have that special mental makeup, right? You see what I
mhm.
mean? So like
Yeah,
if 100 people, just you take 100 people in a corporate job and randomly have them stop and put everything out there, like I think the same 90% that quit it and succeed would succeed, and those guys would, because they wouldn't be able to keep it together. They wouldn't, I mean, it
and
just
have a
wouldn't.
stomach for that
Yeah,
that being on
and
that
there's nothing
level.
wrong with
No.
that. There's just
No,
some
no, no,
people
no.
that are built to take those risks and have self-belief and stuff. And
Yeah,
there's
and I
also a
think
lot that do that, like, screw themselves for a long time to come.
yeah, that's the part that's not talked about, right? Is, like, how many guys who maybe didn't, but, like, what is I think something that reigns true, and this is like, I mean, you gotta first of all decide what you want as an individual, like, and what you're comfortable with financially wise and that kind of thing. But the one thing that reigns true that when I started my job kind of things that has stuck with me is like, wow, that's so true. Like every step you make going up into a, let's just say a corporate role or any position really, but like every step like that, it pulls you away from like starting your own business, from doing what you really wanted to do. And like, not even if it's fishing related, like all these things, because you get more comfortable, like you're making more money. And then like, okay, now you get married, you have kids, like as those responsibilities increase, your likelihood of going and chasing something, in my opinion, drops significantly. So like I think there's something to be said. That's why you see, I think the young 20-year-olds, like they don't have much to lose at that point in their life, right? Like that's the
Mhm.
time to risk things is in your like early 20s, And I think there's different thoughts there, but like I think there's something to be said for that group. And then like you said, the financially stable group outside. There's
Yeah.
it's kind of like there's all these different ways to make it, I guess is
I
what
mean, it would be way better if I didn't, like, financially, if I didn't fish the opens and I stayed and I just did the BTL stuff. And like
Sure.
Jeffrey, like I go in it with Jeffries because Jeffries is like safe, and even now he's like, "How long are you gonna do this?" Blah blah blah. And I'm
Mhm.
like, I'm like, of it's a risk. Like if everybody who did it made it, it wouldn't work out. That's why there's it's so special when guys make it. Like you go into it knowing
yeah,
that 3 out of 100 guys are going to do it. Like
yeah.
you
Let's talk about what
literally
we're
know
looking
that.
at.
It's not like you're telling me anything new. Like I think just because I'm doing it, I'm going to make it. Like I know that the odds are against me, and it's the guys who are able to like embrace that. And I think you have to take, at some extent, you have to take logic out of the equation. And like I think a lot of like self-confidence and hard work and dedication and like seeing glimpses of it, like you have to be honest with yourself, right? Like I mean, if I was out there finishing 190th in every single open, like I would be foolish to be on here talking about it.
Yeah.
But I mean, I've averaged a 58th place finish over my last 24 opens. And going into next year, if you do all the stats for the last 2 years, 54th place is going to finish in 9th place, 54th place averages. So, I mean,
You're right there.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, man. I think I think the realistic side too is like if you don't have just the funds to just throw and throw and throw, it's like, you know, like everything, like if you give yourself that 2, 3, whatever year window and it's not happening, like go back to the drawing board. You need to like figure out a different route, or a more of a learning, take a step back and fish a lower level, fish as a co-angler, like some of that stuff too, I think is a smart way to look at it, man.
Like, listen, I fished the opens in 2015. I fished 3 divisions. I fished 3 tournaments. I mean, I was still like old. I was like 30 years old. And I think, how old was that? 84. Yeah. And I was like, I'm not ready for this. Like, I wanted to be ready for it when I was 21. I wanted to be ready for it when I was 25. But like, I got out there. Now, I mean, I wasn't ready for it.
Yep.
And then I didn't fish it again, the Toyotas, until 2018. And I focused really heavily on the Bass Nation and local events and stuff like that. But I thought I was ready for it because I had a really good year in the BFLs in 2013. But I mean, I got out there. I wasn't like, I wasn't able to do stuff that you need to do to be successful, like confidence wise, mentally, stuff like that.
Yeah, dude. And I think that
And there's nothing wrong with that.
Not enough people take a step back like that, I guess, like, or our company, you know what I mean? Like you build this, you build yourself up, but I think that's like huge to share that just for people who are like, you go and have a bad season, like maybe it makes sense to take a step back.
You saw my, like, where did I finish in 2015? It was really bad. It was like 2 finishes in 100. I think I caught like 2
in Branson.
Yeah. How do you not catch a limit on Table Rock Lake? Like I remember I thought I was going to catch them on a football head.
Okay.
And on the second day I only had 4 fish and I caught 2 of them reeling a football head back to the boat over the timber. And what did I do? I was like, how lucky am I? I caught 2 reeling a football head over the I could pick up a damn swim bait or a crankbait or something. Like the fish are clearly in the tops of the timber, but no, I was going to catch him dragging a football head.
Yeah, staying stubborn like that. And
Ross Barnett, like the first open, like
138, 10 pounds.
It never even occurred to me that like there might be lake where my map shows there isn't lake. So like I practiced for all this and I'm like, where the heck is everybody? Well, that lake has all this like backwater stuff that doesn't show up, like hundreds and hundreds of acres of the most fertile, productive, grass-laden pre-spawn water on Earth. I didn't even know the dang thing existed. I'm like driving up and down the lake, and I draw a local, and he's like, "Hey, you been back in 7?" And I'm like, I've heard of that. Can't really figure out where it is. Like, this is real in tournament." And he's like, "What do you mean?" And I was like, I don't know where it is. I was like, I fished everywhere all over the lake. And he's like, it's like right there. And I look and it like doesn't, there's nothing on my map. And I'm like, what? There's nothing there. He's like, you seriously haven't been back there. He's like, it's the biggest community hole on Earth. And I was like, nah, I didn't even know it existed. So he's like, all right, head towards that stump, go towards that rebar, now shut down. And I idle back there and there's like 50 boats and everybody's catching fish back there. That's how you end up with like 2 fish. So then you start, you know what I mean? You just like learn little stuff. And then I also was like caught some in the marina there. And I'm like, no freaking way that like in an open, like I'm not just going to take off in my first open and fish the freaking marina right there. Well, Jay Brainerd like finished second out of the marina right there.
Oh my gosh.
So, I mean, I sucked there this year. I made bad decisions, but guess what I did? I sat down and I was fishing for points and I never left the marina until I had 10 pounds on day 1, which put me in like 60th. And then I dumped 15 pounds on day 2 in like 30 minutes.
Dang it.
Yeah. Like stupid stuff. Like I'm taking a leak and one eats. Like literally like one-handed hook set stuff to where then instead of reeling it in, I'm like, oh crap, there's a car there. So then I like turn around and I've got this thing on and it's like a 3-pounder that jumps and comes off. And I'm like, what do you do?
I have a similar this year with our Western ABA series out here. And I listened to your episode with Rick Pierce. He does he supports them and gives us a boat. My two guys in Colorado, shout out to Nate and Ty. They just won the boat on Mojave last week. So
cool.
Cool deal. But we finished second on Coeur d'Alene. But dude, I had a 4.5-pound smallmouth eat a jerkbait while I was taking a piss. Like, I mean, like was jerking, and I paused it for a second. I kind of looked at live scope and I was like, and then I was like, oh, and it was just the same thing. I was just like, oh gosh.
Yeah. I mean, you got a co-angler you don't know. You're trying to fight this fish. I had a road on the other side. And then that same day, I think I weighed in 3 fish. That same day, I'm flipping. I made a horrible decision because I thought the area would be too crowded. It ended up not being too crowded. I get back in there. I see one boil. I'm like, that's lucky. I pitch to it. It eats it. It's like a 15, 16 incher, 2.5-pounder. Reel it in, swing it straight over the front of the boat. No issues. It comes off in midair, goes over my shoulder, bounces off the middle of the back deck, off the motor cowling and into the lake.
Oh my gosh. On back deck, off the cowling. Wow.
Yeah, like just
a high hop.
Like off the side, like glanced off the side. Like, yeah. But it flew legitimately, 20 foot 8 inches in the boat out of the back.
Dude, that is wild. Oh, yeah. And it's just like how many of those, like those uncontrollables, like you said, you need to be on enough.
Yeah, I needed to be on more so I could dump those fish and still come in with the limit. I don't even know how we got on that talk.
No, I liked it. Dude, the stories they go on like those are the best parts of this.
Yeah.
So dude, let's get into a little bit of 2023. At this point, obviously you're I would imagine all signed up at this point.
Yeah,
right?
I'm in and confirmed for all 9 of the opens.
Awesome, man. And what are you looking forward to most in the 2023 schedule out of anything?
Getting through the first 3, getting to the meat of that schedule, and then grinding out meaningful finishes. Like the first couple are always dicey because it's make or break. I know there's 9 of them, and you're like, oh, well, you can bounce back, but dude, you bury yourself in the first couple, and the uphill struggle is not fine. It's not fun.
Yeah.
Because then you start taking risks and stuff. And I saw that with John Sokup this year in making the Elite Series. He was able to pop 2 top 10s in the first couple, have some strong finishes, and Hallman was kind of the opposite, right? And they both ended up making the Elites. Hallman through the Centrals, but as the year went on, like I started grinding out decent finishes and could have had more decent finishes, but I had to push. So like when things weren't going good for John, he could salvage a 50, 60, 70th place finish by catching 1 2.5-pounder. And he knew that because he had the points for the top 10. So if you have to average a 55th place finish to finish in the overall, you've got 2 top 10s, now 100th, now you're 50 place average, now you're in it. If you start with 2 100ths and then you have a 60th, well, now you're so far behind the ball. But it was cool being able to watch him and listen to him after each day make decisions based on putting himself in a good position with good early finishes, because it's a lot easier to figure out and decide to go catch a 2.5, a 2.25-pounder to fill your limit out than go try to catch 18 pounds to catch a top 10. And when you catch a 2.25-pounder, it only puts you in 70th. And now now you're further and further behind. So what he was able to do was able to build a lead, build a cushion and lead it. And he kept saying, I'm losing my lead. I'm losing my lead. I'm losing my lead. And I was like, dude, John, that's why you have the lead. So you can you earned that lead. It wasn't like you were given the lead and now you're losing it. Like you earned that lead and now you're maintaining your position. So as he, at Chesapeake Bay, he had nothing on day 2. He had a weekday 1. He's like, I'm throwing a chatterbait 1,000,000 miles, and I saw him twice, and he had nothing. He had his hood up, his head down. I said, this is a disaster to my co-angler. I'm like, he is not in a good mood. He's not catching them. He's right by the freaking off limits, and he was like stayed on one dock for like an hour and a half. and he caught like a 3.5 and a 2 pounder, and he came in with 2 for 5 pounds, and it bumped him all because it was so brutal. It bumped him all the way up. I only finished like 50, 60, 70 or something there. And he came back, and like that would have been a no good finish for him, like where I finished. Like that would have been a no good finish if he hadn't had those top tens. But those 2 fish in that last hour, he came in and was like, dude, did what I freaking needed to do. I grinded out keepers. I got points. I got 140 points in this one. So like that fish, you know, each fish then helped him make the elites instead of just helped him catch up. That's the biggest thing that I've noticed is you have to get ahead of the curve because it's really hard to catch up.
Sure. And I mean, at what point too, I mean, I've heard Hallman talk a little bit about, right? I guess it wouldn't have been this year, but the year prior, 2021 season, of if you're so far behind, do you kind of save face and pull out, right? Like as far as that additional cost, like especially like say it's a tournament up north, right? It's like, do you spend that money to go travel up there? What's your opinion on that? Because I see like the experience side of getting more experience, but I see like the other side of being like the money side.
Yeah, it just depends. It depends on what your sponsor backing is, what you've agreed to, what you've done like financially. Like I have nothing. I mean, Hallman did it last year so he could focus on the centrals. I mean, that's 100% a personal decision. I mean, there's nothing wrong with it. I don't think you're giving up. I think it's really smart in a lot of cases. And it's also really smart in a lot of cases if you still have sponsors that want stuff, you're still being valuable, you want that learning experience, you think you could win one of those tournaments. I mean, I see it both ways.
Yeah. And I think too, like, I think the sponsor side is important because if you are, you know, signing a contract saying that you are competing in all of these and traveling this much and have all this stuff, could be important from that perspective.
Yeah, I agree.
Cool. Now I'm curious to get your opinion on where like the fishing industry as a whole, there just seems to be so many guys wanting to fish tournaments. I don't know your opinions on like Opens, Invitationals, NPFL, Toyota Series, kind of like those all I'm kind of lumping more together than the BPT and the Elite Series. But like, do you feel like we're going to see full fields everywhere?
I think we'll see full fields in the Opens.
I think for sure there.
And
rumblings of what people have said and how many people are signed up.
That's a good question, dude. That's $1 million question.
I know it. And I just can't wrap my head around it.
As many guys as want to fish, like it's a weird economic time, in my opinion, too. I don't know. They seem to come out of the woodwork and fill up fields regardless. So, right? I mean, it's always amazes me. I mean, look at the MPFL stated over 100 through the end of the year. That's a unique dynamic. It'll be interesting to see how many of those guys come back, how many of those guys go to the invitationals, how many of those guys come over to the Opens. They are adding, 100,000 and a big payout at the end of the year, but they're also going up to $6,000 in entry fee. And there is no elite series or classic through that. It's a great trail to make money, to get some exposure if you want. They gutted the invitationals. It doesn't look good. I mean, just ask anybody. I mean, it's like putting lipstick on a pig to say that that's a thriving league. Now I understand they're making changes to try to make it more, had Marty Stone on to make it more of a qualifying league for the BPT. You have to make changes to make money for the organization, but increase the entry fee, drop the championship, have $650,000 payouts and take in $750,000 in entry fees and only pay 10 grand to the top 30. A couple years ago, dude, it was 150 guys, $300,000 championship, 6 tournaments. The payout was over $1 million.
Like 70 people, right?
Yeah, and they paid down to 75. And even if it was a $5,000 check, I mean, it's just like slash and burn. So it'll be interesting to see how many move over. But that opportunity still exists then for Toyota Series guys to jump up to the BPT, which is very attractive. So I think you'll see that fill in. So who knows?
Man, yeah, I'm in the same boat. I mean, I did a solo episode last week comparing the NPFL to the new invitationals because I think they're very similar now, just from a payout standpoint and entry fee standpoint. They're both very similar. I did not know the NPFL bumped up to 6,000. Or is their payout gonna change, or is it staying?
Yeah, I don't want to speak. I don't know exactly what their payout is.
Yeah.
I don't know exactly what they're doing.
But similar. I mean, it's a $5,000 or $6,000 entry fee, payouts 50 to 80K, right? Like that's the invitationals.
I think it's still 50K to win one.
50K to win one. But I mean, I guess I'm saying the invitationals is 80K to win one, but similar entry fee as the
Yeah. You have a lot more chance to win one. And if you win one, you're in Red Crest then. So I mean, it's not like it's totally done. But that was a big payout. I mean, look at how much money. Go back and look at like FLW guys and how much money they've made in the FLW Cups alone. It's freaking crazy. I mean, those guys who've made who haven't never won one and made $500,000 in just the cups. It's an entry fee event, guaranteed $10,000.
Yeah, it's like was similar,
and they just cut it. Yeah. So, but like I said, who knows? I mean, there's still a bunch of guys who seem happy over there. It's a viable option. But I mean, there's a lot of guys I think they're going to bail to the opens. That's why you're seeing open numbers super high.
I think so. I mean, here's my thoughts on it. I think that opens will be very full, especially at the beginning of the season. And I think well, heck, I mean, even the folks who are wanting to fish 3 of their division, maybe the Northern Division of the opens, or what was. So I see the opens being very full, but for the folks that like were very upset with the opens going to 9, I think that actually helps the Toyota Series out. Like Toyota Series already
100%. Yeah,
Toyota's attendance awesome as it was. So I think that Toyota Series will boost higher than they've already even been. But I think in turn, Major League Fishing is going to have struggle with the invitationals.
And I'm sure they'll fill it.
Yeah,
they always do.
Well, there's too many guys who seem to fit, right? Like that's why the NPFL started. There's too many guys that want to have that experience, if you will, of fishing a tour, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And it's a good opportunity for folks. I like what I love about all this is the amount of live coverage. And I really wish the opens had more of that, because I think that
it's a money deal. I think if they come up with, if there's a sponsor that steps up and they see, value in it, it'll happen.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's the coolest part of it all. And I think it keeps people excited about it when there's live footage. But cool. Well, dude, I'm excited to watch you in 2023, man, and to get after it. What are you're probably doing a bunch of crappie fishing right now? Is it just
no? I'm hardly fishing at all. I'm trying to get my studio ready. I'm moving out of the BTL studio into my personal studio. I'm trying to get the mobile studio ready, trying to get all the deals and everything done for 2023. So I've been on the water. I've only crappie fished like twice this year so far. So hopefully I'll get to do some a little around Thanksgiving.
Yeah. I like it, man. I like it. And changes to BTL in 2023, man. I've heard you talk a little bit about it, but anything you want to share as far as
no, same shows. There's going to be a lot more on location shows, mobile studio. I'm working on shows from the Bassmaster Opens, and then just getting the studio in the house. Jeffries is kind of changing some stuff up, doing stuff with his studio. That was always part of the plan for the past year. A lot better here. Probably some more evening shows, but additional shows for next year. Try to hit that 200 show mark in 2023, and then just provide some additional content for sponsors, just with different on location, in studio guests, that type of stuff. So, but yeah, just awesome. Keep grinding on it, man. I mean, it's every single year, and that's the bread and butter. So I'm not quitting BTL to fish. I'll tell you that. It's a combination deal.
Heck yeah, dude. Well, you do a very, very good job with it. I enjoy it. It's the industry standard, in my opinion, in the podcast space.
Thanks, dude.
So
Jeffries did it a lot. I mean, it took him decades to get it there. I just took it over and was a sidekick for a couple of years.
Well, you do fantastic with it, Matt. The final thing I want to ask you: 3 biggest smallmouth, largemouth, spotted bass, where you were and what you caught them on. Your 3 biggest.
We'll start with smallmouth. 6.6 last cast, day 2, 2021 open on the St. Lawrence. Only had 4 in the box and caught on a 3/8 ounce Ned rig.
Stud. That's awesome.
Biggest largemouth would be an 11.4. Caught it on a Bass Tricks bait fry off of a bed on Arbuckle like 12 years ago. And that's cool. My biggest spot, I I've never like weighed a spot like that. All the big giant spots that I've caught have always been in a tournament, and I've never put them on a scale. So it would have to have come out of bait. It was either practice, and my biggest spot would have, my biggest spot would have been 100% in the open on Pickwick, where I ran out of Pickwick in April into Bay Springs. And I had, over the 2 days, I had 3 over 4. I had a couple but each day I had like a mid 4 spot. Wow. I've never caught like a true tanker spot.
Yeah.
But I haven't really fished many places where they exist.
Really, that's like what? I mean, you have like the California lakes, and then you've got, I mean.
Yeah. So I guess 2 of the 3 species in a tournament's not bad.
Yeah. Heck yeah, dude. That's where you want to be.
Yeah.
I like it. I like it. Well, awesome, dude. Well, thanks for taking the time out, Matt. Look forward to seeing you at the Classic or somewhere else down the road, fishing a tournament somewhere. We'll have to catch up for sure. But until then, dude, good luck getting everything ready for 2023, and excited to watch things happen.
Thanks, Adam. You guys are killing it over there. It's hard to do this. It's hard to do this consistently and pump out content and not miss it. And with what you guys are doing with the network and yours and Business in the Bass Boat and the Serious Angler guys and that whole group, you guys put in the freaking work, and people notice that.
Thanks, man. Certainly appreciate the kind words. Matt, have a good rest of your day, dude.
See you, Adam.
See ya.